to Freebird. Today is a really special day because for the first time, maybe we are touching upon topics about change and really transformative change in the Indian landscape. I'm so pleased to introduce to you Protima Sharma. A little about Protima. Protima is an entrepreneur, and after a very illustrious career in HR with various big companies in India, she moved on to create PeopleWiz, which is a wonderful organizational excellence firm. But what brings Protima and me today on Freebird is a discussion about India's children. And a little to know about her is that Protima is an adoption counselor and the founding member of Where Are India's Children. Hi, Protima. So good to have you on the show.
Hi, Sneh. Thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure being able to speak to you like this. Yeah.
It's lovely. I know that it's raining hard in India. So for all those who are watching the show today, please bear with us and be patient because there might be a little lag in the video. But we promise you that the conversation is going to be something that would really, interest all of you. So, Pratima, I'd like to begin with asking you a little bit about your own journey into motherhood. And I know that you have two beautiful daughters, Ivanka and Virushka, right? Am I saying it right?
Yes, Virushka.
So, would you tell us a little bit about your journey into motherhood and what these beautiful girls have brought into your life?
Growing up as a little girl in an Indian household, I think you're fed with the notion of, handsome prince, beautiful babies, happily ever after. But thankfully, I think me and my sister, we were both raised by an amazing set of parents who raised us to become really independent in our thinking and our decisions. I think I still recall having conversations with my father as a teenager about adoption can potentially solve the population explosion issue that India faces, And you become an idealistic teenager and you start thinking, yes, I should adopt a child. And when you grow up, you forget about it till light gives you a choice, And that's the kind of fork that me and my husband, we had in our lives. We arrived at a fork and the doctors kept saying, there are so many things you could do. There's IUI, go for IVF, there is surrogacy. And then you step outside the clinic and you look at life again and you wonder, you look at kids at the signal and then you start thinking, am I doing something completely wrong? What am I doing? What's going on? I think the choice just, presented itself to us. And thankfully, India has a very good centralized, digitalized adoption mechanism now. And we registered for adoption. Our elder daughter, Ivanka, came to us when she was 3 months old. We were lucky enough to have found a very nice, very capable adoption agency that made the entire process and the experience very smooth for us. Even to have her with us, what can I say? It's being a mother. It's I think if you're willing to learn, children teach you so much. They're curious, they explore, they practice a talent so many times. They surprise you with the kind of tenacity and persistence that they have. So if you're willing to learn, you can just keep on learning from children all the time. When it came to the choice about second child, I think it was a no-brainer. We knew that the wait time had been increasing. The day Ivanka turned 1.5 years old, we decided we'll go ahead and register again. And then Virushka came. She was also about 3 months old. They're grown up now. Ivanka is 5 years old. Virushka will turn 2 by September.
Wow.
And the second child, it's more about, the joy obviously doubles, but it's more about looking at them, how they interact with each other, how they look out for each other, and, they fight, they cry, they make up, they move on. But they're still there for each other. So that's sibling, the pleasure of seeing siblings grow. And I have a sister, and my husband also has 2 brothers. And that also prompted the thought that, at least have this two children with each other. And that's how it has been. So it's been going pretty well.
As I hear you talk about both Ivanka and Verushka, I feel like, everything that you've said is literally about, you know, um, the classical motherhood experience, except for the gotcha part, or maybe how you came to meet them. And I know, reading a lot of the literature that you were so kind enough to share with me, that there are a lot of myths in Indian society and in, well, let's say Asian societies, about having the child being biologically yours, otherwise not being able to connect and all of that. And I think what you're also trying to say is that these are myths that are ought to be dispelled, and I think it begins with your having an open mindset towards learning from those who become your family. Is that right?
So yeah, it's so true. It's finally your conviction about the decision that you've taken, and being a mother to a biological child or an adopted child, it's not really different. It's the same. But let me not paint it all with the same brush. I would
Right.
add one thing to it. See, these children have experienced some kind of trauma, even as an infant, 3 months old. The child has experienced being separated from a primary caregiver.
Caregiver.
When,
Mm.
when Ivanka came home for 3 months, she did not smile. She did not smile at us. I would do
Oh.
everything I could, change her diaper, give her a bath, and she just wouldn't smile at me.
Oh my.
And I still remember when she started smiling. She was just lying on my lap, and I was, giving her milk. And then she just kept looking at me, looking at me, looking at me. And suddenly, she gave me this beautiful smile.
Oh.
I thought, oh, wow, finally, she's accepted me. With Verushka, it was a little easier, but I think that's because of Ivanka. So Ivanka just took care of all this,
Wow.
initial issues, attachment. But children go through that to be prepared. So this, and I actually blame Bollywood a lot on feeding this really
Yeah.
notion of adoption. So, you think you'll have a healthy, chubby baby who'll come running to you and be forever thankful that I was adopted by you and you're the savior.
Oh my God.
These children are saving us, really. But so that initial thing I would say is, you just need to be patient. You just need to be patient. Let nature take course. And
that's exactly the point that I was coming to, that, I have a cat, right? And of course, I'm not trying to draw a parallel here, but I was just, sometimes it's so remarkable. We got this creature at a point where he was a kitten and there was no other cat around to teach him how to behave. But organically, when he was happy, healthy, he knew what to do. And I think maybe there is some infinite DNA within all of us when we are born, human, animal, plant world, whatever, that we are somehow coded inside, that if we are given the right environment, we can then become, who we were always meant to be. I wonder if that's true. I mean, it's very interesting to me to think about that like that. So,
snakes do these counseling sessions with couples who are interested in adoption and they want to find out more about it. And they do ask me questions about, will we bond, will we attach? And what I tell them is, if you're married, you have already experienced adoption.
absolutely.
Because what if because you adopted a 25-year-old
Yeah.
home and you learn to make memories. So it's so natural to bring the child, be with the child, and it's attached to the child. And so I don't think it is all in our head. It doesn't really happen. When
I
you're in the middle
absolutely
of it,
agree with you. And what makes this also quite, and I like how your outlook, and one of the reasons why I wanted to speak to you about this subject was, like, when we organically talk in various communities or between our friends about adoption and things like that, I think everyone has this very kind of gloomy, almost sad picture sometimes to portray. Whereas what I really liked about the work that you were doing was you were not running away from the facts that are there within India's, society, but in terms of adoption numbers and all of that, but you were actually looking at mechanisms through which you could be an enabler towards this change. And one of the things that I wanted to share with everybody was something that was on your website, and maybe you can run the numbers through us. But I read on your website that almost 30 million children are abandoned in India, out of which 0.25 million actually find their way to some sort of shelters or homes, and out of which only 2,000, approximately 2,000 children actually find their way home to get adopted. And for me, this number was, I sat with this number for 2 3 days, and I think I was so upset by it that I didn't even know if I could do this chat, because that's not even 1%.
It's not.
That's not even 1%. So would you talk to us a little bit about how these numbers actually, and what is the current system of adoption within India, before we move further about what is it that you do? But could you tell us a little bit about the landscape that there is right now in India?
Sure. So, as I said, the Women and Child Development Ministry has set up a central body,
Mm-hmm.
CARA, Child Adoption Regulation Authority. That is the centralized authority that regulates all adoptions in our country.
Mm-hmm.
So, gone are the days when you see in a picture that you can walk into an orphanage and pick up a child and choose between 4 5. That doesn't happen. If you're interested in adoption,
Yeah.
you go online and register your intent to adopt. You provide financials, your capability, you write your motive. They take that information down and then they interview you. They send a social worker to your house. They interview you to find out whether you're fit to adopt, fit to raise a child, really.
Mm-hmm.
Is the child going positive, vibrant environment? Having done that, they ask you various questions around your choices. So, boy, girl, any, how old. So there are age categories, 0 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 6, like that. They have certain suggestions depending on your age and the child's age. They try to match. And then your wait period starts after the home study gets over. You wait, and then you get a referral, which is just a ping on your cell phone to say that login check. There's a child waiting for you. So you log into the system, you see the picture, you see the medical reports. If you think that, looking at the report, this child that I will be in the capacity to bring up that child, then you reserve the child. You're given certain period of time, which is now obviously increased because of the pandemic. A lot of travel is not.
Sure.
So all that time's been increased. You can go visit the child, meet. There's another panel interview that at the agency again. You bring the child after signing a foster care agreement with the agency. You bring the child home. Within 3 months of doing that, you are given a court hearing date where a judge speaks to you, looks at the child, and then passes an order to say that this adoption has been legalized. With that court order, the agency goes to the new birth certificate that shows your and your spouse's name as the father and the mother. And that's really it. That's the basic
You
document
make
you
it
need.
sound so simple, but I know that this process takes sometimes years to accomplish.
That's a wait period. So it's only the wait period. So it's very quick to register quickly. But the wait period, so from getting a seniority number after a home study is done to a referral, especially if you're in 0 to 10 couples are registered, merely as 2,000 children. So you can wait up to 2 years for that. But again, once you get the referral, process quickens again.
That's amazing. And I mean, this is, thank you for illustrating that process so clearly to us, and, also telling us about how the systems have improved significantly. And actually, it's a relief, because the more systematic things can be, the more parents and children can find those families. Compared to the Indian adoption system, are there any benchmark systems around the world where you see that some countries do it better than India?
We have a lot to learn. Just look at the numbers, 50,000 adoptions in the US. US, 60,000.
Oh, wow.
We have a lot to learn. But I also feel no system can be copied and pasted in India. We have our unique issues. So anything that you want to try in India has to be completely customized to the kind of society and the mindset and the environment that we have here. Um, for example, a big difference is US has open adoption, wherein the adoptive parents and the biological parents know about each other. But India has a closed adoption. I am never told about the biological parents of my adopted child, and the biological parents are never told about who are the adoptive
Is
parents
that?
of the child. So, a lot of reasons. I think it's a good thing we are concerned because we insist that the parents need to legally adopt the child before the child is put in the legal adoption pool. So you
Mm.
surrender the child completely. It is believed that once the child is surrendered and the child goes into a new family, any kind of any kind of relationship which is maintained might hinder the settlement of the child in the new family. Yeah, all that can happen. But
So it's
obviously, I think
actually for the
that's the
protection on both sides, right?
However, there is root search which is allowed, which means that though I will never know about the biological parents about my children, they are allowed to find out who their parents were once they turn 18. They are considered adult in India,
Mm-hmm,
so they can go to the adoption agency and demand to see anything and everything about the parents, what circumstances in which they came, whatever records the agency has been maintaining about them. They have the right to do root search.
That's pretty awesome, actually, that this exists and these records exist, because I mean, I think it's a great way to say to that child also that you're empowered. It's not a circumstance that you're just burdened with. I mean, if you choose to, then that information does exist. So in a way, I mean, the system is protecting against something that is probably not comfortable, but it's also allowing for the child for when, so they would want to find out that information. Pratima, you head up an organization called Where Are India's Children? And I love the name because to me, this was really the question about the big gap, like what is happening here and why is it that this kind of uh, clear missing piece of the puzzle does not
Yeah.
fit into place. So I would like you to tell us a little bit about what compelled you to start this movement and what it's really about.
Sure.
I know that there are some very specific actionables that you have using this organization, and I think it can benefit all of us to learn more of it.
So, Snail, let me start by saying that, Rumi puts it very nicely. The wound is the place where the light enters you. Right? So it was my own experience of adoption which made me realize that I felt a little bit lonely. They weren't enough people to talk to. I was not getting answers that I wanted. I just did a lot of self-study and books and videos and all that, but there was really nobody to speak to, which is
Right.
why I got interested in counseling. So I went ahead, did an adoption counseling course, and then started counseling parents for this journey. I met two brilliant counselors along with me, and so me, Smriti, and Meera, three of us got together. And what we realized after counseling parents for 2 years was that
Wow.
the issue was not that people are not interested. The issue is not that they need to learn a lot about this. They are willing. There are 30,000 of them registered. The
Wow.
issue is they are waiting for 2 years, 2.5 years, and they're giving up because of this thing. And then we wanted to dig further as to why. Why such poor
Mm.
numbers? Why only 2,000 children in the league
Hmm.
pool? Only 1,000 adoptions a year. Why is it so poor in India? And that's when we started finding some reasons. Hence the question, where are children? And you quoted the statistics that despite having 0.25 million children in the shelters, often abandoned, gradually abandoned also at times. They're just put there by the relatives and then the relatives never visit and the child gets gradually abandoned. Nearly 2,000 are ending up in the legal adoption pool. And what we realized was this, that the current system is highly dependent human intervention, because there's so many stakeholders. There's a shelter owners, there's adoption agency, there are child welfare committee members, district child protection unit officers, all of them are responsible for the well-being of the child. But adoption somehow doesn't figure when well-being is being talked about.
Wow.
Somehow we believe that, providing shelter, food, education sufficient. It's not. Every child has a right to a family.
Absolutely.
Best interest of that. It's not an institution. At best, it can be a very good-looking hostel. That's all. It's not a family. And then we started digging further, and we tried to come up with some solutions. So there are 3 areas on which we started working.
Mhm.
One is awareness. So we do run a lot of campaigns around bringing this issue in front of people, talking to stakeholders, making them aware that such a problem exists and more needs to be done. We
And
also
who would these
think that.
stakeholders be?
So sorry.
These stakeholders, is it the government of India? I mean, who would they be in this case?
Yeah. The government of India has CARA, which is the central body. Every state has SARA, State Adoption Regulatory.
Okay.
Every state also has branch of WCD Ministry, which is the Women and Child Development.
Okay.
And that are also appointed district child protection officers. There are 350 adoption agencies, over 2,500 child shelters in our country. All these put together create the ecosystem of child welfare in India. So what we realized was, awareness for public, for especially around child abandonment, surrendering children safely,
Yes.
encouraging adoption as an option instead of abandonment as an option. Those kind of things we thought we should bring to the fore. Other big area on which we've been focusing is technology. How do I even count? So you'd be surprised. Even that 0.25 million number in child shelters, you'll not get a proper count. Every WCD report will give you a slightly different number, or not even slightly, like could be between 2 lakh and 3 lakh, 2 lakh and 4 lakhs. They're not tracked. We don't know how many children are there. We don't know how many of them abandoned, how many of them orphaned. We don't know age of the child. So much information is just missing, and that's only due to lack of proper technology. There are discrete systems that organizations are using. They don't talk to each other. So there are all these kind of issues. So technology, we think, is a huge enabler in solving this issue, which is why within Pune district, where we are based, we're running a pilot for developing a technology that actually tracks the life cycle of the child inside the shelter, from the time the child enters to the time the child is assigned maybe to a family, or assigned to a institution, so on and so forth. And advocacy part is another, because we feel that even the Juvenile Justice Act, which is the major act that under which most of the adoptions happen in our country, that also doesn't talk about adoption inquiry in much depth. We feel that there should be a section dedicated to adoption inquiry within that. Every child that enters the shelter should have an adoption inquiry conducted on them. It should be frequent, it should be regular. We should be checking if a relative has put the child in the shelter, what happened, how often was the child visited, is this relative willing to take care of the child, yes, no. Permanently putting child in a shelter which is what we've been trying to bring forth. So yes, these 3 areas means through this we are trying to bring in a lot of awareness and changes as much as we can.
That's, I like the way you've bucketed it as well, because then the problems can be solvable. I believe that the answer to, most of world's problems is actually if you break it down into smaller steps. So then, someday you can actually get there. And to your point on technology, and even on some of the words you've used there, which for most people will be new, but I would just like to highlight again that what happens, I think, in most countries maybe is that when a child, for example, is unwanted, or the carer, the the person who's taking care of the child doesn't want this child, they usually would go to a close by shelter or an adoption center and just let go of that child, maybe keep the child by the door or something like that. And this is what you mean by saying safe surrender, right? That
Yes.
uh,
Yeah.
that this is a very critical part in the leg of the process, where because the child is not surrendered properly, even the first step of that whole step that you were talking about doesn't happen. So could you talk a little bit, because I know that you did this whole campaign. I saw a lot of lovely videos that you guys had done on safe surrender. So maybe we can talk a little bit about what safe surrender means.
So, so as you put it, in if a parent or anybody who is responsible for the child is unwilling to take care of the child, the Juvenile Justice Act allows them to surrender the child safely in any adoption agency which is nearest to them. They can also call a child line number 1098 that I have this child or I found this child and I need help. So a volunteer from Child Line would, guide you to the nearest place where you can go, or actually come and help you take care of the child and take the child to the adoption agency. What ends up happening is a lot of people don't know this. And India, being a vast country with varying levels of literacy, education, financial capability, children get dumped in dustbins, railway tracks. Girls are killed, and that's a completely different issue that we have in
Yeah,
our country.
yeah.
Female,
In Pakistan,
um,
yeah.
and they get trafficked, they get sold, they get left in hospitals. Hospital don't know what to do with them. Lack of awareness we feel, and if you bring a child to an adoption agency and you say that you want to give up, this is my child, I want to give up, your information is kept completely confidential, anonymous. You are not told that you can't do this or what you're doing. You're not judged or nothing like that. But people don't know. People
I
just
agree. There is, I think there are probably two different parts of this. And the first one, I mean, when I wasn't as well aware about the subject 1 week ago, uh, when I was thinking about it, I thought that the problem was a problem of mindset. That there are, I mean, as a society, we want to have our own babies, our own kith and kin, and all of that, right? But then I realized that if you just look at the number of human beings we are in India and across India, outside India, uh, there is no way that the math can fit, because there's always going to be someone who wants a baby, or maybe who wants to have this experience, right? So what was interesting to me then was to start looking at these numbers and even look at the process and even the lack of awareness. I mean, I consider myself fairly educated, but even I didn't know what it meant to have like safe surrender, or if someone was around me to ask me that question, I didn't know what it was. I just thought that it's something that is so neglected in our social welfare communication in India. I mean, I don't think I've seen even one campaign in the time that I've lived there or abroad on the subject.
And we were equally worried when we were running this campaign. We thought that people will tell us that you're encouraging, giving up children. And we had all those worries.
Right.
But I think what I realized was that I think we know very little. People have really unique circumstances. You can't judge a person and say that you should keep the child up. You can't say all these things to anybody. Everyone has their own life and the challenges that they're handling. The only thing you can say is,
And
there's
the
a system.
autonomy of knowing that you have a choice. I mean, in the end, it's up to an individual to know that they have that choice, and then to experiment with it, whether or not they want to choose it. I know at this point we may be sounding idealistic, but I also believe that that is the way change happens, in increments.
Great, yeah. I think the first step is making them aware, and that's what we're trying to do.
I know. So,
Help people.
and exactly like what I said, I mean, I believe that as it is the right for every child to experience love and safety when they're born. I mean, I think this is the birthright of every child. It doesn't matter where they're born. And to that very notion, I feel that every child that is born, for every child that is born, there is a potential parent out there, whether Indian, non-Indian, or whatever that be. But for some reason, we have not really had a big blitzkrieg or a big movement of change. That kind of social change, or that tipping point in social change, is something that I find that it's not really kind of transpired yet. But I'm hopeful that it will. So I wanted to ask you, Protima, that in your experience of having counseled I don't know how many parents and had these discussions over and over again, what do you see as the next most important catalyst to make this change happen?
I do believe that the change has started. If you look at the number of people registering almost every day for
Really?
adoption, that number
Wow.
steadily increased. So we are somewhere around 30,000, couples who are interested in waiting to bring a child home. Internationally, people show so much interest in special needs children. There's so much interest internationally to give them a family. So I think it has started the change that is due in India. However, a big thing is a couple of things I would highlight. I think that needs to happen more. Is people like you and me, really, all of us. When adoption comes as a topic, lot of times we relegate it to the last choice. We will
Absolutely.
try everything else possible. If it doesn't work as a losing out option, I'll go for
You
adoption.
know why I'm laughing about this, right? Because, oh my God, I'm just going to say it anyway. And probably I'm going to be hated for this, but I'm going to say it anyway. But let's just say in my own family, I had once aspired and I had shared this dream that, why do I need to be a biological mother? I mean, it's okay. I can adopt. And this is largely because in my early years, when I was 18 or 17, I was doing a lot of volunteering work for the missionaries of charity. And I was like, this is, so that kind of changed my headspace big time, as I was growing up. And I remember the kind of issues it created at home, because they were like, no, it's not the same thing. And I think that, that stayed with me for a very long time till I had the courage enough to form my own opinions about it. So you're right.
Yeah, that's something that I think, when we're planning our lives and we're planning our marriage, we pick up a husband, we choose. I think this is an important topic to discuss and talk about. And everybody has a unique circumstance. I mean, I'm not saying everybody should go and adopt it. Entirely up to you, but consider it. Give it the due thought that it deserves. And the other is, again, there has been slow changes, but I still feel um, a child-centric adoption vis-a-vis a parent-centric adoption. Even today, it is about, oh, I could not be a biological mother. I'm missing something. It's my misery. I'm lonely. This child will come. He'll make me happy. He'll take care of me when I'm old.
This baby.
So much about me. And I want to, and you won't believe, Snails, about when people ask me questions about will the child be fair and will the child be this, will the you wonder, you start, you're not sure, please remember that it's a privilege. It's an absolute privilege, honor to be a parent to a child. You have to look inside and figure out, are you ready? How do I prepare myself? I mean, I remember watching videos on how to change diapers, how to give birth. I read about parenting, how to be a conscious parent. Though that's what you need to worry about. Worry about how to be better and better as a parent. Don't put your expectations on the child and say that the child should be like that and he should grow up and become a NASA scientist. And that's just crazy. It's just crazy. The entire focus has to be, as a parent, what is it that I can get better at? Please make adoption decisions centered around a child and not around your choice. And that's, I think, it's a again, it started with, and it's changed. There's very one really good adoption writer who said this, and I quite like the quote. It is, a child born to another woman calls me mom. the magnitude of that tragedy and the depth of that privilege is
Wow.
not lost on me.
Wow.
Yeah. You need to remember that, what a privilege it is. What an absolute privilege it is.
That is so beautiful. Oh my God. That's a beautiful line. Wow.
We're going.
Beautiful line. I mean, exactly. Wow. I mean, I'm just taking a moment because that is, I think, probably one of the best lines I've ever read on the subject. You know, that it's a privilege. It's a momentum of trust, a memento of trust, and you're there to receive it. You know, so that's quite surprising and amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Um, I also wanted to ask you, Protima, as our last question. Um, you know, a lot of us who are watching this right now, maybe somewhere along the path, starting our own families, thinking about getting married. Some of us might be dating. So, what advice do you have, if you have any, for them? Because I understand that everyone's life is to their own, but I do believe that the time and the awareness has come for conscious parenting. People do understand what it means to leave a better earth for the future. So, would you share any advice that you have from your own experience of being mother to two beautiful girls? Um,
So this is what I would say to anybody who's thinking of starting a. If you can adopt, please go ahead, take the plunge. You'll never regret it. It'll be a beautiful moment. The entire experience would be really joyful. If you can do it, nothing like it. And as I said, don't worry. You know, you got married. You already know what's adoption. You can do it. Yeah. If you can't adopt for any reason, and again, we all have different lives. Unique situation. Just be truly happy for the people around you who are own children. They are my own children. They're just not biologically mine. They're my own children. So the right language, So educate yourself. Volunteer, contribute, find out what's happening in the child shelters in our country. How is it that I can make a difference? Such a small thing, Sneha. I'll tell you, we were talking about safe surrender. Recently, suicide was such a big
yeah,
topic in India, Shant Singh Raj. And you would
yeah,
see every news item to read at the end, it would have information about the hotlines, suicide hotlines. And
right,
we just recently started a petition to the media saying every time you're reporting on child abandonment, please provide information about Childline and the nearest adoption agency that's available. Small thing,
yeah,
all should be aware which is the nearest adoption agency. How do I contribute? These children who are living in the shelters, they are our future. You can't run away from that. They are part of our society. They're going to grow up and enter our society. It is our responsibility to be at least educated and aware about what's happening. How is it that I can contribute and do something about it? So if you can adopt, nothing like it. If you can't, please educate yourself. There are so many ways in which you can contribute. Just be happy for people who are adopting. Encourage them. Celebrate, just like you celebrate birth. You should be celebrating adoption.
absolutely.
That's what I do.
But thank you so much, Protima. I mean, you know, there was this line, I was trying to remember it earlier today because I thought that's how I would open the show, but um, it's by our own Mahatma Gandhi, and he said that the truest measure of any society is how we take care of those who are vulnerable. And as I've read through your work and, you know, educated myself in the process on everything that is that you do, I am just so happy that you know, people like you exist to bring this awareness to people like me. And I do hope that everyone who watches will take a moment to read and educate themselves as well. And I remember that you wrote on one of your blogs that your personal mission of doing this is so that you could look at Ivanka and Bill at some point and be able to say that yes, I did whatever I could to bring, you know, light to this subject. And I think you're doing that so beautifully. So I really want to say thank you, and you know, thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk about it. I just hope more and more people get aware about this issues and the topics. And if I can, inspire even one person to go register for adoption, it's a great thing to have happened.
Absolutely. So, guys, I'll be setting up all in the show notes, all the posts and all the notes from Where Are India's Children. And if you are inspired to know more, or if you are a mother or a father looking to start your own lovely little family, please feel free to connect either one of us, and we would be happy to help in any which way we can. And with that, thanks everybody.
Thank you.